Tasting wine with Pete and Dave. Pete,
what have we got today?
Yeah, we've got a good selection today, I reckon. It's a little bit from everywhere. Well, a little bit from France, a little bit from Australia here, I reckon.
Okay.
And the first wine we've got is Riesling from Alsace.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, we've recently had a Gewurz from Alsace, but this is, I think, maybe the first Riesling we've looked at.
Yeah.
In recent times, anyway.
Now, this is an interesting Riesling, I think. It's a dry Riesling, and quite often you can get some pretty sweet Rieslings from over in Europe.
That's true.
But this one, to me, has that steely sort of characteristic, flinty sort of characteristic, and I also get some pears.
Okay, yep. Well, I mean, Alsace does do Riesling a bit different, if you like, differently from the way other places do it. Interesting, I think from looking at the label there, this is 2012, so by Australian standards, that's pretty young. That's almost equates to a 2013 in Australia because the vintage is 6 months later over there. So it is pretty young, the 2012 Riesling.
Beautiful tasting wine. A little more subtle than maybe the New World Rieslings, but lovely taste.
Indeed, and one of those characteristics, it is pretty zingy, but the Alsace style of Riesling does tend to be reasonably full-bodied and quite full across the palate, and compared to a lot of our drier styles, and this one certainly does show a bit of that as well.
All right, well, the next one, we're coming home here with this next Riesling. Now, this is a Riesling from the Clare Valley, Mr. Mick.
Oh, Mr. Mick, yes, okay. That's, if I'm not mistaken, made by Tim Adams. I don't know that it actually says much about that on the label, but it's in honour of his mentor, Mick Knapstein, who was one of the real founders and leading lights of the Clare Valley wine scene, and really did make a huge impact on Australian wine in general. So a tribute, if you like, from Tim Adams to Mick Knapstein, and I think this is a 12 as well, 2012.
Yes, 2012, and the first thing on the nose, like I was saying, these New World wines made in Australia, New Zealand, US. This has a little bit, I sense a little bit more acid there.
Yep.
And there's more of a zingy and more of a citrus sort of characteristic on the nose and on the palate. I get some lime.
Yep, true. Yeah, well, you're going to get more of that citric or citrus fruit element with Clare Riesling. I mean, the time-honoured descriptor is lime juice, limey, that sort of character, and you do get a bit of that here. And again, another example of what can be done with dry Riesling styles in the Clare Valley in a great vintage. I mean, this is, I don't think this is particularly expensive either, so it really does offer outstanding value for money, really crisp and clean, brilliant acidity, as you said, which is what you tend to want in a young Riesling, and yeah, it offers that 2 bob each way as well. You could drink it now with fresh seafood, but it's got the structure that if you like older Riesling, if you like that toasty bottle-aged character, you can keep this for 10 years without any trouble.
You reckon this has got any oak in it?
No, they don't put oak in it. The Alsace style can have a bit of oak maturation. They don't have an oak character as such. They use really big old barrels if they do use oak in Alsace, but they don't. Winemakers in Australia are very wary as a rule of using oak with Riesling in particular. They do it sometimes with Semillon and with Sauvignon Blanc, or blends of the two, if they want to make a statement, if you like, a particular style of wine. But generally speaking, you go a long way to find an Australian winemaker who uses oak in Riesling.
Lovely style Riesling. I quite enjoy that. Nice hot summer day with a light lunchtime meal.
Absolutely.
Now, next wine we've got here is a good old Beaujolais.
Okay.
I love the Beaujolais, and I think it was really one of the first wines after I came back from Italy when I went back to America. One of the first wines that I really started enjoying. I really like that light style.
Well, it's a style of wine that is a really useful introduction, if you like, to wine for people who think they might be interested or think they might like a glass of wine but haven't really got it sorted in terms of what they like. If you start hitting them over the head with big blockbuster Barossa Shirazes, then they sort of run away scared and hide. But I mean, you get something like a Beaujolais, the Gamay grape, which we don't have much of in Australia, but a few people have played around with it, and that's the grape the grape variety which goes into Beaujolais. And yeah, you're getting that really vibrant, really zesty, fruit-driven style and really approachable, friendly sort of wine.
I get some really light cherries. I can imagine these really red cherries.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting though, isn't it? Because we often say that about like cherry. You think you can get that in a Pinot, you can sometimes get it in Grenache, and you think, oh well, maybe you shouldn't be using cherry quite so, freely, if you like. But it's just there's cherries and there's cherries, just like there's mint and there's mint. And there's wood and there's wood. So there, yeah, you do get cherry, and it's a really brambly, really fresh. And a great lunchtime style of wine. Maybe not so much for this time of the year when it's cold outside, but in warmer weather, or if you're going to Queensland in this time of the year, then head up there with a bottle of Beaujolais, and it's going to be pretty good value.
By all means. In fact, I think you can even put that in the summertime. Put that in the fridge. Just
absolutely,
put
just a little chill. Yeah,
absolutely.
Or if need be, even chuck an ice cube in there. It works really well.
Yeah, lovely wine. Always enjoy a Beaujolais. All right. Next wine we've got here, this is a Pinot Noir. This is an Australian Pinot Noir. This is Oak Ridge Pinot Noir from the local vineyard series. That's a Syme Vineyard in Yarra Valley. And this is a 2011 vintage.
Well, this is very interesting because 2011, as we've said on a number of other occasions, does not have a stellar reputation, shall we say. Certainly not the reputation of the 2010 and the 2009 which preceded it. And the Syme Vineyard is a parcel of fruit that would normally go into one of the really top shelf flagship wines, the 864 series from Oak Ridge. But it's found its way into this one, and as such we're looking at something that I think retails for maybe mid-30s in terms of price points, and it's way better than its station, really. Interesting, the colour, you look almost like that onion skin colour that you often get with European lighter bodied wines, with even with Burgundy from France, where they're not so concerned about primary fruit character. They're interested in, you've got Pinot varietal character in there, but you're looking for something a little bit more secondary, a bit more complex, and the first indication of that is the colour of this. You're getting that onion skin colour, which sort of leads you to think we might be getting something a bit funky here, and I think on the nose we get that.
Oh yeah, I love the nose on this, and it's some very interesting fruit, light berry fruit as well. In fact, I get a hint of a raspberry in there, which is really,
a little bit of raspberry. Yep, a bit of raspberry. There's quite dry characters, quite savoury characters. Again, there's no question that it's Pinot, but it's not a simple fruit bomb style of Pinot. It's a quite a complex style of wine, definitely a food wine. You hear people often talk about having Pinot that goes with roast duck. Well, here's the embodiment of that notion. I mean, this is a wine that's made for duck.
All right. How would it go with lamb?
Yeah, it'll go with lamb as well. It's got the structure to go with lamb, so that's the big thing. It's got the structure to do that. So, yeah. And one of the famous labels in Australia, Oak Ridge is one of the market leaders at the moment in Burgundian varieties, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and I think, this one shows why.
I could see that going with a bit of lamb with a bit of mint sauce. Mm-hmm. That would be a really interesting combination, I think. Very good. All right, the next one we've got here is a Tuzner, a dog strangler. Now, this is
sounds pretty scary.
Yeah, this is really interesting. This is from the Barossa Valley, 2011 vintage, and it's a Mataro.
Yeah, straight Mataro, Aka Mourvèdre, but as I think we may have suggested earlier on in the piece in one of our earlier videos, Mataro is a name that's coming back. It's the older style of name that they use in the Barossa Valley for this grape variety. For a long time it became fashionable to use the French nomenclature, the Mourvèdre, but a lot of the old school in the Barossa are thinking, look, we're Aussies, we want to call it Mataro, and so they do.
I love the spice on the nose with this particular
you don't often see it as a single varietal wine, much as you often don't with Grenache either, just quietly. You don't often see straight Grenache either, but even less likely are you to see a straight varietal Mataro. But this one shows just what it can do in a good vineyard in a warm climate, albeit not a hot vintage, 11 again, cooler as a vintage, but beautiful, savoury, spicy character.
It is. Wow, beautiful wine. And I love that. Just straight Mataro, that's great. All right, the next wine we've got here is Mount Langy Billy Shiraz. This is a 2010, so this is going to be, without even putting that to the palate or the nose, I know this 2010 vintage is going to be very big berry fruits.
Yep, big bold fruit, albeit the entry-level wine, if you like, for this maker, Langy Garan, one of the flagship makers of Shiraz in Australia. And this is their entry-level wine, and suffice to say that there'd be a lot of other makers who'd be pretty happy to have this as their flagship wine.
Huge dark berry flavour.
Absolutely, yeah. But no overdone oak. There is a bit of oak there, but you wouldn't rule. At least there seems to be a bit of oak there, but it's not really prominent. Just really bright, bold, savoury fruit, medium-bodied rather than heavy.
Wow, that even surprises me more on the palate than the nose. I mean, there's big berry fruit on the nose, but on the palate, it seems like it's even 10 times bigger than that. Wow, another beautiful wine. Okay, our last wine here today, Pete. I'm looking forward to this one because I don't believe...
Oh, we've got a Cabernet. We haven't seen much Cabernet of late.
Yeah, wow, this next wine, Pete, is Vas
Felix. Okay, yep.
Cabernet, 2010 from Margaret River.
Vas Felix Cabernet Sauvignon. Well, as I think we've discussed before, these folks do make some of the best wine in Australia at the moment. Vas Felix is one of the leading lights of Margaret River. Margaret River have hardly missed a beat in recent years, even when the rest of the Australian wine scene suffers from less than brilliant vintages. Margaret River seems to turn up trumps every time. And this is the signature grape variety of Margaret River, or at least in reds anyway.
Well, they were the first in Margaret River as well.
They were, yep. The first commercial entity, if you like, late 60s, I think 1967, the Summer of Love. That was when it all started over there in Margaret River. And they did
I remember that, Pete.
Yeah, I have memories of that as well, but I was far too young to be doing anything constructive about it. But yes, 1967, they kicked it off over there in Margaret River. But
big fruit, dark, plummy sort of characteristics, and this is so thick you could almost cut it with a knife.
Yes, indeed you could. Well, it's a classic style. It's Margaret River Cabernet as opposed to Coonawarra or Yarra Valley Cabernet. There are lots of learned people out there who would have you believe that Margaret River is the closest approximation to Bordeaux that we have in Australia. And certainly as they get older, these wines, on the nose in particular, you get some of those characters, and this will go down that path. Wow. 2010 is a great vintage in Margaret River, and this Vas Felix Cabernet Sauvignon is one of those wines. It's a great wine.
Been a privilege to try this one.
Absolutely.
I guess that's the last wine, Pete, so we'll catch you again next week.
That sounds like a plan.